Hi, I'm Bud Carlson with Turbo Aquatics. Today what I'm going to show you how to do is a couple of modifications to your existing algae scrubber. The first one I'm going to start with is the Rev 1 L2. Now this is the older version, the original version that I made, which had a hole on the side that was a bit higher than I have it at now. So I've got a patch kit that allows you to lower that hole, which involves drilling out part of this to put the patch on. I have another patch kit that allows you to convert the bottom drain to a threaded connection for a larger drainage. And then I have a kit that encloses the slot pipe, uses a new style, basically involves two patches. One of these patches can be a combination patch, which also lowers the hole and allows for the new slot pipe design. And the other one is just a standalone patch for changing the slot pipe over. As well as for the enclosed slot pipe would also involve cutting off part of these tabs right here on the corners here to allow for the new pipe design to fit in place, and I'll show you this. And all of these patches will have, the holes will be threaded so that they can accept the larger connection. What I'm going to show here is how to expand the hole here to allow for the patch with the new threaded connection, which this is not threaded yet, this is just a template. Where this should go, and basically what you do is you overlap the hole about that much. Now if you can see that where the overlap is occurring, but it's just kind of a football shape or a Jesus fish shape. So similarly you would put the single patch over in a similar fashion. There we go, you can see the hole. So anyways, the placement of the hole does not have to be exact because the hole is going to be larger than that you drill is going to be larger. So basically what I do is I take a razor blade and I just make kind of an etch. Just use the tip of that razor blade and make an etch of the location. If you wanted to get really specific, what you can do, if you have this patch version, is that you take your lid and you push it up flush against the side of the unit here, and you can get that patch so that it's flush with the top, so that the top edge of this patch matches the top face of the scrubber. Then you measure this distance and you get it to be about the same all the way across. But for the purposes of drilling the hole, you can pretty much eyeball it, and then just what I do is mark a center line. And actually once you do that hole, you can mark a center line like this and like that. And basically you have a point right in the middle, and that's where we're going to drill. So for the drilling, what I do is I use an acrylic bit. This is a special bit meant for drilling acrylic, but you can use just about any bit. I suggest that you drill a pilot hole first, because most hole saws have a bit in them. And for this application, you'd really want the bit because you don't really care about this. You don't want the thing walking on you. So anyways, you just try to drill a hole as plumb and vertical as you can. What's nice here is that, I don't know if you can see this, but you can use the reflection on the black acrylic. It's like a mirror, and you can actually line up the bit so that it's straight up and down and drill the hole. And put it on high speed setting. You don't need to press really hard. Once you get to a certain point, you'll feel the bit almost try to pull itself through, and that's when you let off the pressure. So now you put on the drill bit, and what I use is a 2-inch bit, or in this case it is 51 millimeters. And the reason is because you want the hole, this is a smaller bit, this is a 1.5 inch or 44 millimeter, and that will actually go right through the hole. So you don't want that, you want it to be one step bigger than that, so that it doesn't go through the hole. That way when you drill the hole, the patch will actually, you won't have acrylic behind the patch that blocks it. So drilling the hole, and I think I actually drilled my hole a bit too low or a bit too high. It kind of looks that way to me. Let me double check it here. Nah, that's good enough. So drilling the hole with this is a bit, you get some hot pieces of acrylic or plastic that will kind of fly at you, so just be aware of that. But just go at a pretty good speed. Doesn't have to be super high speed. I would not use If you're using a corded drill, I wouldn't run it at full bore. You'll see how it goes here. And hold on to it tightly. I do that rotating thing a little bit to allow so that the edge doesn't get kind of caught up and bite. It's already throwing hot pieces of acrylic at me. Getting warmer. So I take a break every once in a while to let it cool. And there we go. So there's the piece of acrylic you end up cutting out. Okay, so now that what we're left with is basically the cut hole, and this will have a lot of rough edges on it, including the patch, which has or rather the hole that you cut out. So what you want to do at a minimum is just take a razor blade and scrape out the edges with the razor blade, and you just need to, there's not a lot of pressure here, you're just taking the edge off. Sometimes a little ridge will build up if you let the drill get, or if you let the bit get too hot, and in order to let the patch come down smoothly, you do want to take that edge off. So you would maybe spend just a couple minutes scraping that, but this is also mainly so that it doesn't, you don't get a rough corner. And I try to get it on the inside too. And just be careful with the razor blade that you don't cut yourself, of course. I do this all the time, so it's kind of second nature to me to just grab it and start scraping with the razor blade. Also, the drill bit will leave a kind of a rough area on the inside of the hole. You don't have to scrape this out. I do, just because I like to. It's just attention to detail, I guess it's me. I just don't like that rough area. But you do that just by kind of rocking the razor blade back and forth and getting it so that it's, you know, catching all the surface. This takes a little bit more time, but you also have less nuisance algae, or I guess, you know, difficult to clean algae that will be in this area. You'll also have a couple of sharp edges. Let's see if I can get you light so you can see them. Basically right where the two holes meet up, right here and right there. That's kind of a sharp pointy edge. So if you're reaching in the box and cleaning with something, you might catch yourself on it. So I like to take those down too. And this just involves scraping right across it. And if you have access to a file or something like that, you can actually just take this whole thing down flat, but that's not really necessary. Alright, so now we've got the hole smoothed out, ready to go, and the next step would be to actually apply the patch. The next modification I'm going to show you is required for the enclosed slot pipe modification. And the problem here is that the end caps on the slot pipe do not, let's see if I can get the light here right, they don't fit through the gap right here on the lids of the older Rev 1. It just doesn't go through. So one modification, one way to fix this is you only need to take off about, you can see here, maybe a 1/4 inch. And what I did with this case was I just used a coping saw and I positioned it You only need to take it off of one side also, and you just basically cut right through, cut a little sliver off. You can leave the other side intact, and then it actually will slide right through. And when you take it out for cleaning every week, you just have to pull it to the side slightly and up and out. Now the other way to do this is to just take a Dremel with a sand, like a drum sander attachment, or in this case I used one on a drill bit, and just sand it out, and just sand off like 1/8 of an inch on either side. Of course you do risk what I just did there. And a Dremel would obviously give you a little bit better control, as you could hold on to it better so it doesn't run away on you. And get the other side now. That's quite enough. Takes a little while. The other way to do this is to use a router and a jig, basically something to hold it so that it doesn't go into the material too far, and then just shave off that end. But as you can see here, that was just enough to get the pipe through. I'm going to continue to shave this off to get it so that where the pipe will actually drop into place. It doesn't have to go all the way to the end, but it has to go pretty close. So you do want to get that edge pretty far down. It takes just about as much time as it took me there to get that sanded as it does to cut this off. So that would probably be the way I would go to do that. And you can also take just a regular file and shave this down to get down to the corner. Back to the side that I cut with the coping saw and smooth it out. And there, now I can get the pipe all the way to the end, in and out, just fine. As you notice, it only took cutting out not even hardly enough that you can see in the video here. There we go, you can see it. And we get in really close. There we go. Okay, so you can see that basically there's a little bit of an eighth, or like a 1/8 round on this corner, and all I did was take that off. That's all I needed. And that was the part that I sanded down and then ran over again with the file. that's the part that I got with the coping saw. And I'll go ahead and show you that real quick here. Just get it started. And then just muscle right into it. Going at a bit of an angle on this one, and it's not going to look pretty. So I'm going to have to fix that. Oops. Yeah, I didn't take my time on that one as much. Alright, I got interrupted there. Anyways, then what I did was I rotated the blade on the coping saw, and then I'm just gonna get the rest of the cut from this direction here, and then grind it out with the file, smooth it out. There we go. So all I took off was a little tab like that, and now file it down. And there we go. Now in retrospect, I probably could have just filed down the edge here and not even used the sander, so you might consider that. But that's the modification to those are the only two modifications to the box that you need to do, this one and that one. Okay, the only other thing I do after this is the same thing I did when I cut the holes, and that is take a razor blade and just take the edge off of everything. So that way when you reach in the box, if you grab your hand and it scrapes across that corner, you don't get a little cut. Acrylic is like that, which is why all my edges and all my units are rounded off. And so just go through that and you can do all those sharp edges. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is how to bond the dual patch on to this location right here. Okay, so basically we've already drilled the hole, and for anybody watching this video and wanting to do this same procedure to the Rev 2 L2, the hole is already in the correct spot, so you don't need to change anything, and the patch just lines up with the hole. Okay, so this procedure also covers the same for the Rev 2. This is Rev 1 box that I've drilled the hole in, as shown in the previous video. And the first thing that you want to do is get some denatured alcohol, and this can get from Home Depot or Lowe's, pretty cheap, and a cotton cloth. And what you're going to do is just clean this area off. So I'm going to pop this open. Put a little bit of the denatured alcohol in there. If you want to use rubber gloves, go ahead. I never do. And you want to clean the acrylic off. You just clean all the gunk off. Any buildup that you have. This will take anything off pretty much. You could also use vinegar to take off any kind of salt residue or any kind of from spillage or anything like that. But as you can see, now it's pretty clean. And then what I've usually done with these is I've marked, when you get this, it'll have a section, a side marked out. So obviously that is the outside. And then what you want to do is just peel the masking off. Just find a corner, pick at it, get it off. Okay, and then you just clean this off real quickly too with the denatured alcohol. The denatured alcohol, what it does is it gets off any kind of residue from the masking, and also any kind of fingerprints. And any cloth that you use, you can use a plain paper cloth or a paper towel. That will scratch it up a bit maybe. The cotton cloth works the best. And then what you want to do is just usually blow everything off to get all the static charge off of it. What I use for that is just regular dusting air, anything you'd use to clean out your keyboard, a couple bucks at the store. Just, oops. Okay, see what I did there? Is that I tipped the can too far over and the accelerant, or the liquid actually came out. So you don't want to shake the can, you want to keep the can level. And that stuff it'll evaporate, but I've always erred on the side of caution to, there we go. Err on the side of caution to make sure that that stuff does not, like the kind of residue doesn't get into the gap there. Okay, next part I'm going to show you is doing the actual bonding. Okay, what I use is my self mixture of what's a Weld-On product like Weld-On 4 or Weld-On 3. This is just straight methylene chloride, which is the active ingredient, and a little bit of acetic acid, about 7% acetic acid. You don't need to worry about that. Just get the Weld-On 3 or Weld-On 4. Pour it into your bottle. You don't need that much of it. I just have that much shown here. Okay. The next part you want to do, actually you can probably do this before, is you want to etch out an outline of where this is going to go. So what you want to do is you want to line up this top piece, and you can use a spare piece of acrylic, even the other extra piece, or just a flat piece of anything. You want to line it up such that you can see that the top of this is level across here. And then you also want to center it this way and center it on the hole, so you can just eyeball this, right? And you can even take a calipers if you wanted to and measure it so that it's perfectly centered. But you really don't need to, as long as the threading of the hole lines up here and it doesn't interfere with the hole on the inside, because the hole you drilled should be a little bit bigger, and then the U-shaped cutout is a little bit bigger, so you shouldn't have any interference there. But you just want to make sure that you get it roughly centered and just kind of feel it in. Okay? And then what you do is you take a razor blade. You can take a straight razor blade, or you can take one of these extendable ones, and you just take it and you kind of hug it just real lightly. You don't have to press down at all, and you mark a line. And you mark it on the other side, and you mark it on the bottom, and what you're left with is a very light etching. I don't even know if you can see this in the video. A very light etching showing the outline of where the piece will go. And now you know where to place the glue, and then when you put the piece down, you know how to line it up. You don't have to take out the calipers. You don't have much working time. Okay, so this is the Weld-On 3, this is the liquid thin stuff. And you want to do this step relatively quickly. Okay, with the liquid stuff you have a little bit more time. You can see it evaporate, you can add more if you need to. If you use the Weld-On 16, the gel-based stuff, you have less, you have to go pretty quick, because that stuff will skin over. Okay, so what you do is you just start adding it, and you want to just kind of make an outline of the area, and you can add a little bit, you can drop a little bit in here. Don't want to put too much on there because it'll squeeze out, it'll drip all over, not going to do you any harm. And then you put the patch on, just drop it in there, give it a little wiggle, and what will actually happen is you'll feel the lines that you made. You'll feel it when you wiggle it back and forth, like it's just kind of snapping across it. So you just get that. Again, you use this piece to push it this way, and this piece to push back, and you get it in place and lined up, no interferences. That's it, it's bonded. I mean, it literally, you can't move it now. It will, I could probably press up on this and get it to come off if I pushed really hard, but that's it. You're not going to get that off now. Now, what I usually do is give it a good press down. I just double check that I'm not missing the lines, because you do have, like I said, once you get it down on there, you had a couple of seconds where you can move it, but it's not much. It'll feel like it's floating and skating, and then once you get it in a certain spot, it's done. It'll stay right there. Now you want to leave it like this. You want to let it bond for 24 hours, let it soak, or let it set in. because the slot pipe that goes inside here has a piece that is threaded, and it pushes against the pipe. Of course, the pipe pushes back and wants to take the patch off. So you want to let it go for a good 24 hours. Now I can go ahead and do the other side. This side I'm going to show you using the Weld-On 16. Okay, so I've got the dual patch on, and now I'm going to do the single patch, which is just the end cap patch. This is for the number 3 kit, which is the enclosing the slot pipe. So I'm cleaning it with the denatured alcohol. Same steps as before. Get any kind of gunk or stuff in there, just try to get it out, get it cleaned off. Nice clean surface to work with. Perfect. I don't know if you can actually see the difference between all the dirty surfaces here and the clean surfaces. But anyway, now you do the same thing. And if you are doing this patch, you want to do this dual patch, you want to do this one first because that gives you the base of weight. You can put weight on this side. If you have this side down with only this patch, you'd have to put something else to support it. So anyways, let's see, let's take another random piece of acrylic here, line it up, make our outline. And don't forget to blow off. It's not super critical to do that, but because you're patching such a large area and not a joint, but might as well do it. Okay, so what I'm using here is actually the Craftix version. It's number 33. Same thing as Weld-On number 16, which is the gel type stuff. This stuff, I've had this for a while, so hopefully this isn't gone bad. But as you can see, this is really kind of gooey and stringy. Okay, and it sets up relatively quickly, so once you take the cover off and you squeeze something out, you gotta cover it up again real quick. Okay, so this is gonna go fast. What I'm gonna show you here is how to do this with the gel and do it so that it doesn't cure too quickly on you. If you let it skin over too long, just by letting it be exposed to the air, and then you put the piece down on it, what happens is it'll spread that out, and it will actually leave a really thin, like maybe a like a 1/4 of a millimeter gap in there, and it's not quite as strong of a bond. You want to get it down and press it down so that it's thin in profile as possible. Okay, so let me see if I can zoom in here on this for you and make sure it's focused, just so you can see how quickly this needs to be done. Okay, here goes. I'm going to set the main area you want to patch is right there, but you want to get the outside of it too. Okay, I'm putting it down. I'm capping it off. Yeah, getting that patch in place. And it is gooier, it is kind of slidier. And it has the deceiving tendency to make you think that you have more working time, but you really don't. So that's why you want to be quick with that. You want to be quick with setting the patch on top of it, I guess, is the main thing. And then you want to try to line up the gaps here and here, which is what I'm doing now. And while I'm not trying to rotate the piece too much, just try to get it centered best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect, unless you're me. And then, even then, you can see that as I'm pushing this down on it, I can still move it. So you're going to want to hold it in place there and make sure that it doesn't move. And at this point, what I usually do is put a weight on it. I'm going to let this kind of cure up a little bit better. The other thing you want to check here is to make sure it will goo out into the joint here on the other side. And you don't want to put too much on there. You notice how much I put on there was just enough to make sure that it spread out and covered the patch area. And this is still mobile. I can still move this a little bit. And I can see from my outline that my outline wasn't really dead on, because I can see the gap here and the gap here is about right, but I have more of a, I have the line, I can see the line over here. But anyways, once you get it set in place and get some pressure on it, you can actually see that when I'm pressing on it. If you can see that in the video, I'm not sure, but you can see that the gel is kind of on the outside, moves a little bit. So it gets to a certain point where it's not going to move quite as much at this point. So now I've got a 5-pound weight, and I'm just going to try and center it over the thing. But you want to make sure that this doesn't have much ability to move around. After about a minute or so, maybe 2 minutes, it'll be kind of, it'll be more difficult for it to slide on its own, just due to like the slickness of the weld-on. And even as I look at this, I can still see a little bit of a gap on one corner of it, but it really doesn't matter. The area that you want to make sure you get the most bonding in is right around the U-shaped cutout. So that's that, and then you want to let this sit for at least 2 hours with the weight on it. And then after that, you want to let it sit for a full day, 24 hours, before you actually put any pressure on the outside by putting that pipe in there. In this video, I'm going to show you how to bond on the bottom patch. It could also be the same procedure, or it is the same procedure you would use to bond the side patch onto the Rev 2 unit, which does not need the hole changed. And also, if you are doing one of the upgrades that did not include the kit that encloses the slot pipe, which is this part right here, then you would actually get a patch that's for the side hole and a patch that's for the bottom hole. Now the patch for the bottom hole is a 1 1/4 inch hole. Okay, so you're going to see the difference here. 1 1/4 inch, 1 1/2 inch. Smaller patch goes on the bottom hole. Larger patch goes on the side hole. So if you look at the existing holes in here, they match up. This hole is smaller. The drain hole is, and the Rev 2 is for a 3/4 inch bulkhead. And we're changing that up to a 1 1/2 inch threaded adapter. On the side, this is for a 1 inch uniseal bulkhead, that hole, and we're changing that up so that it fits a 1 1/2 inch threaded fitting. Okay, so don't get the two confused, because if you put the 1 1/2 inch fitting the hole over the small hole, you'll see that there's an interference there, and you won't be able to get the threaded connector to thread through. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to put the bottom patch on. Usually I mark these with an in or an out, or an out mark, as you can see, an out, and that has to do with the way that the thread is tapped. Sometimes the threading will line up better on one side versus the other. This one it didn't. It was the same. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to show you the whole procedure. You take the masking off of the piece, off the inside face. Again, you take your denatured alcohol and your cotton cloth, or paper towel if you don't care about scratching things up. And you just get a little bit on there. Again, you can use rubber gloves if you want. I never have. You're supposed to, I guess. And just wipe off the surfaces. This also has the action of cleaning the acrylic. Denatured alcohol is a glass cleaner. It also is an acrylic cleaner. If you leave a rag of this sitting on on acrylic overnight, though, it will start causing micro cracks called crazing. So anyways, you just clean that surface off. You can clean it with vinegar beforehand to clean off any kind of gunk that's on there, any kind of buildup from use in the tank environment. That usually helps too. This one I was able to clean off with that. Then you take your compressed air in a can, just your regular old dusting air, keyboard stuff, whatever. Wipe and blow off. Try to blow off all the dust particles, or all the whatever is left over from the rag. Sometimes some of them don't want to come off. Not really super important. If you're bonding two clear pieces together, it is, because otherwise you'll get all kinds of micro bubbles. Now I'm going to use the Weld-On 4 type of material, which is dispensed out of the squeeze bottle. This is the liquid thin stuff. This is what I prefer to use because it's a little hard to get a hold of, but depending on where you are in the world. But it bonds faster, it spreads easier, and it dries to a thinner profile immediately. You don't have to worry about it. One thing you can check on, I wanted to just point this out while I'm here, is that as I tap these, obviously it gets thinner and thinner and thinner until it gets to a point. And usually there's some threading material, or some of the threads can be really thin and they can crack out. So you want to just kind of flick that with your finger. Be careful of a sharp edge. There's a sharp edge right there. And of course after you do that, you gotta clean it off again. So you usually want to do that first. Anyways, I'm going to show you here. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see this up close. I'm going to make sure the focus is good focus. I'm just going to make a circle of the weld-on material. So that's all you really need. It's just enough to circle that. Make sure that the bond is sealed all the way around, and that plate, it'll smush out quite a ways. It does help. I've shown this in my other videos. I'll zoom back out a little bit here. To just place the hole over here, kind of get it centered, just kind of get a rough feel. You can feel how close to being centered you are there. Take a razor blade and mark the outline of the patch. And what that'll leave you with is just a guide point so that you know that the patch is centered. So you have to stick your finger in there when there's the bonding, the glue in there, or the solvent in there. Okay, so I'm going to do this real quick here. Oops. Before I do this, I'm going to zoom in so you can see detail. Alright. A little bit more than I usually use, but that's okay. And just get that patch down in there, give it a little wiggle. You'll actually feel the little tick lines that you made. It will tick along it there. And it's already setting, so I'm kind of where I'm at here. Use good light so you can see the where the lines are that you made. And actually this is already set, I can't even move it. Okay? I could probably pull it off if I wanted to pull hard enough. But when you make these lines with the razor blade, extend out a little bit. And the line's not going to be perfect, but what it lets you do is, because you're not going to be able to see the lines once you put the patch down. You can only see the lines if you're really far off, so it's just kind of a general guide. So you want to make the lines extend out a little bit further. And this patch is in there pretty well. With the Weld-On 3 and Weld-On 4 stuff, you don't really necessarily need to put weight on it, but it never hurts. Now, this patch on the top, or on the bottom rather, which would be the same as this patch on the bottom of the Rev 2, and the patch that's on the side of the Rev 2, if you're just getting the single patch and not enclosing the slot pipe, you don't really need to put weight on these for the full period of time and let it cure for 24 hours necessarily, because this is not under any outward pressure. You're just screwing a fitting onto that and hanging it from it. So it really does not experience a lot of torque pressure or outward force or anything like that, unlike these two patches. And as you can see, I've got this patch in here. I'm using a clamp to hold it in place because I wanted to make the video. So I wouldn't recommend doing it this way. I just want to make sure that it didn't move. You could also clamp it in place, but I would use a board across the back of this and lay it like I have shown and clamp it down good. You can do that. You don't need to do that for the patch at the top or the patch on the side of the Rev 2.